The morning started like any other. The kitchen light spilled softly over the worn tile, coffee brewing with that familiar hiss and gurgle. The birds outside chirped like they always did, as if they had no idea things were shifting inside these walls. I stood by the window, watching the condensation form tiny rivers down the glass. He walked in, my husband, strong now, upright, his shoulders no longer sagging under the weight of illness. No more oxygen tank, no trembling steps. Just a quick glance my way and a mumbled, "Morning." No kiss, not even a brush of his hand on my arm. Just the sound of his keys clinking in his palm and the door shutting behind him. I turned to look at our wedding photo above the fireplace. The frame was crooked. I didn't fix it. That photo had been with us through every move. I remember when he was too weak to even sit upright, and I would read to him for hours. He called me his anchor, his angel, said he wouldn't be here without me. Now he barely saw me. I sat down with my mug, the bitterness of the coffee echoing the taste in my mouth. I should have been grateful. He'd recovered. He lived. But gratitude doesn't soothe the sting of being invisible. Midway through the day, my phone buzzed. A group message. From him. "Family meeting tonight. Please be present. Important." That was it. No context. Just an order. And a sinking in my gut. A year ago, the world tilted. The doctor had looked at us and said the word no one ever wants to hear. Cancer. Stage uncertain. Odds split down the middle. We left the clinic in silence. I remember how the air felt. Thick, like trying to breathe through syrup. I called my boss and quit my job the next morning. There was no question. We canceled our anniversary trip. I boxed up my paints and put my studio into storage. Every part of me became about him, his meds, his meals, his moods. I learned to inject, to change dressings, to clean up messes no adult should have to make. I read every side effect, every late-night forum post from other spouses who walked this path. I held his hand while he vomited into hospital sinks. I slept in vinyl chairs and fought with insurance companies on 30-minute hold loops. The first few months, family came around, brought casseroles, called me a rock. But slowly, they faded. Stopped offering. Stopped asking. Back then, he whispered that I was everything to him. Now, I was just the person who forgot to replace the milk. Dinner that night was tense. The chicken was overcooked. I forgot to set the timer. My daughter, Lauren, picked at her food like it offended her. Across from me, my husband stared at his plate. Our son, Matthew, texted under the table, his thumb barely pausing even when I tried to make small talk. "So," I said, too brightly, "how was work?" A shrug. A sigh. "Fine," Lauren muttered. I looked at him. He didn't look back. There was a shift I couldn't name, a weight in the air, like everyone had already rehearsed something I hadn't been told. He cleared his throat as the plates were being pushed away. "We need to talk. It's about the house." My hands tightened around my fork. I kept smiling. "Sure," I said. He talked about changes, how things were different now, how we should reorganize. I nodded like I understood, but I didn't. Later, they all gathered in the living room. Him, the kids, and Lauren's fiancé, Daniel. I stood by the doorway. No one asked me to sit. He talked about independence, about needing space, about maybe downsizing. I looked at the carpet, trying to anchor myself to something. Then Lauren said, "You could use some space of your own too, Mom. Maybe something quieter. A senior-friendly place." Senior-friendly. Like I was being reassigned. Like I was a worn-out couch they were moving to the garage. I didn't say a word. Just nodded. This is how it happens, I thought. They erase you politely, smiling while they do it. After the meeting, I began clearing the dishes, quietly, just like they wanted me to. That's when I saw it. An envelope, tucked under my plate. Addressed to me, but not in his handwriting. I sat alone in the kitchen long after they'd all gone upstairs. The house, usually buzzing with TV noise or footsteps, felt like a stage after the actors had walked off. Only the hum of the refrigerator kept me company. The envelope lay where I'd found it, its edge sticking out like a trap waiting to spring. Thick, cream-colored paper. My name printed neatly, Not in Silas's looping scrawl, but in cold, blocky letters. My fingers hovered over it for a long time. Opening it felt like opening a verdict. I slid my thumb under the flap. The seal cracked. Inside were several pages, crisp and heavy. My eyes caught phrases before my mind did. Transfer of ownership, occupancy rights, notice of vacate. Legal language, dressed up like a polite letter. My throat tightened. This wasn't a conversation starter. This was a plan already executed. This was weeks, maybe months in the making. He had put it on paper before he ever looked me in the eye. I'd saved his life. He evicted me on paper first. I started from the top, line by line. My old office job had trained me to see the fine print where most people glance away. It wasn't downsizing. It was a full removal of my name from the deed. Certain bank accounts had been shifted too, my signature missing, but my presence erased anyway. This wasn't just betrayal. It was systematic. People show you who they are when you stop being useful, I muttered under my breath, a phrase I'd once overheard at the hospital and tucked away. My hands trembled, but my head cleared. I reached for my phone, quietly snapping a photo of every page. The sound of each click felt like a nail being driven, one by one. "Don't react now," I whispered. "Don't give them your shock." I rose from the table and climbed the stairs slowly, the papers tucked under my arm. The house was dim, hall lights off, doors mostly closed. My daughter's door was ajar. Her phone sat on the bed, screen lighting up with incoming texts. I didn't mean to look, but the preview flashed before my eyes. "Mom won't take it well, but Dad says it's for the best." I froze. My stomach flipped over, a sick roll. Lauren, my girl, the one I'd fought for when Silas called her spoiled, the tuition I'd paid, the nights we whispered like sisters under blankets, she'd been in on it. Even my safe relationship had been weaponized. Tears welled, but they didn't fall. So this is what being erased feels like, I thought. It wasn't loud. It was quiet. Paperwork, text messages, smiles over dinner. That's how they do it. Downstairs, the front door opened and closed. Silas whistled softly as he hung up his coat, a tune he used to hum before his treatments when he wanted to pretend things were normal. He stepped into the kitchen and glanced at me, expecting something. Shock, maybe a plea. Instead, I smiled faintly and folded the papers like they were nothing but recipes. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Everything's fine," I said, keeping my voice even. He nodded, satisfied, and went to the living room. I tucked the documents deep inside a cookbook no one ever opened. My hands were steady now. My grandmother's voice echoed in my head, that old saying she loved. "Never wrestle with pigs. You both get dirty, and the pig likes it." Tonight wasn't for fighting. Tonight was for planning. I opened a magazine, stared at the pages without reading, and built a mental checklist. Bank statements, emails, legal contacts. They thought I was powerless. Let's see. Later, in the quiet of my room, I opened my laptop and started scrolling through old emails for anything I could use. Patterns, transactions, names. That's when I saw it. A new message from someone I didn't recognize. Subject line: "I know what they're doing to you." The glow of the laptop lit up the dark kitchen like a tiny stage. My eyes were heavy from hours of scrolling through bank records, but the subject line at the top of my inbox jolted me awake. "I know what they're doing to you." No greeting, no name, just those words. My hands hovered over the mouse. I had half a mind to delete it. Anonymous messages usually mean nothing good, but my gut said otherwise. I clicked. The email wasn't long, but it cut like a blade. Whoever wrote it knew details they shouldn't. Dates, account numbers, the timing of Silas's so-called recovery plan. "You're being set up," it read. "Check the joint account opened last year under Silas's name. There's more to the story." My pulse hammered in my ears. At first I wanted to laugh it off. Who does this? Who hides behind a nameless address and feeds you poison? But then, the last line made my stomach drop. "Your daughter signed off on it. It's all there." Dig. I pushed my chair back from the table, staring at the screen as though it might swallow me whole. Denial and instinct wrestled inside me. I wanted to slam the laptop shut, but I couldn't. Something in my bones knew this was the missing piece. I began digging, one window after another, using old login credentials, tax paperwork, whatever scraps of information I had saved over the years. Hours of domestic life had given me access to everything. I had just never thought to use it. I pulled up the bank's online portal and entered an old password. It still worked, and there it was, a bank account I didn't recognize, opened after Silas's recovery. His name on it, but not alone. Co-owner, Lauren, my daughter. My throat went dry. The deposit started small, then grew. Disability checks, private gifts from friends, even transfers from the emergency fund I'd built when Silas first got sick. Money that had been meant for survival, siphoned off under my nose. I leaned back, the chair creaking. This wasn't just emotional betrayal. This was arithmetic, strategy, a long game. My hands shook, but I forced them steady enough to screenshot every page, download every statement. I whispered to myself, document now, react later. The email had an attachment, a voice memo, labeled, "For her, she deserves to know." My finger hovered over the play button. It was late. The house was asleep. I took the laptop into my room, closed the door, and sat on the bed under a blanket. I pressed play. A voice filled the small space. Shaky, scared, familiar. They're planning something. Not sure if she knows. I don't want to be part of it. If something happens to me, tell her. It was my sister-in-law. She'd passed away 3 months ago. Health issues, they said. I sat frozen, replaying the message, over and over. Her fear bled through the speakers. I wasn't just excluded. I was surrounded by silence while being robbed blind. Tears welled up but stopped halfway. They weren't the same tears as before. They were heavier, sharper. The sky outside the window began to lighten. I sat at the kitchen table again, a different person than the one who'd opened that email. "This is no longer about marriage," I whispered. "This is about identity, about survival." A quote surfaced from memory, one I'd read in a worn paperback years ago. "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." Eleanor Roosevelt. I'd always liked the sound of it. Now it felt like a challenge. My first instinct was to call someone, an attorney, a friend, anybody, but I didn't. Not yet. I started writing everything down instead, mapping connections, names, dates, transactions. This wasn't just evidence. It was a blueprint for the truth I'd one day put in front of them all. For the first time in weeks, my mind wasn't spinning. It was calculating. Just as I closed the laptop, a knock rattled the front door. I jumped, heart slamming against my ribs. The clock read 6 a.m. No one decent knocks at that hour. I moved slowly to the peephole. Through the glass, I saw a figure in uniform. Not police, not delivery. Someone from my past I never expected to see again. The knock came sharp and fast, 3 times. I sat upright before my brain had even caught up. The clock read 5:48 a.m. Not even birds were up. I stayed still, listening. Another knock. This time softer, but just as deliberate. My breath caught in my throat. No deliveries come this early. No neighbor drops by before sunrise, and certainly no family, especially not lately. I slipped out of bed, wrapped my robe tighter, and padded to the door. The hallway creaked beneath my feet. I peeked through the peephole. A man. Alone. Hands in his coat pockets. Face shadowed but oddly familiar. My fingers gripped the lock. Fight or freeze. I hated how many times I'd asked myself that question lately. "Who is it?" I called, my voice dry, sharper than I meant. "It's Elwood," he said. "We went to school together. Please, we have to talk. I'm sorry I stayed silent." I hadn't heard that name in years. Elwood Fenn. We were close once. He'd known Silas too, back when we were still young enough to believe in people. I opened the door, just a crack. There he was. Same eyes, same lopsided jaw, but aged. Worn down. Haunted, maybe. He stepped forward into the porch light. "I don't have much time," I brought something. I shouldn't have waited this long. He held out a small USB drive. My instinct screamed trap, but my heart said, look closer. What is it? I asked, still keeping the door halfway closed. I found something months ago. Paperwork, conversations, overheard meetings. I thought it wasn't my place. I was wrong. He looked over his shoulder. I can't explain it all here. Your house isn't as safe as you think. I opened the door wider, just enough to take the USB from his hand. Not in front of the kids, he said. Please. Just watch it. And don't tell anyone I came. Then he turned and left, slipping into a beat-up sedan parked just past the mailbox. No goodbyes. Just vanished into morning mist. And I didn't hesitate. I closed the door, locked it tight, and went straight to the kitchen. The light was still dim, only the glow from under the fridge keeping things visible. I plugged the USB into my laptop. There was only one file, a short video labeled with today's date. I clicked play. The scene was a charity dinner. I remembered that night. He'd asked me to go at the last minute, said it was good for optics. The video was cropped tight on Silas, standing at the podium. It's been a long journey, he said, smiling into the mic. But I pulled through. I fought back. And now I want to inspire others to keep going. The crowd clapped. The screen panned slightly. I saw myself sitting beside him on stage. Not a word, not a mention, not even a glance in my direction. Then, mid-applause, the camera cut, just briefly, to a side angle, enough to show me in profile, holding his hand. The same hand I had held through every chemo round, through every night of vomiting and crying. The same man who now stood before a crowd, erasing me with a smile. The video ended. 27 seconds. I sat back, jaw clenched. My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. Not this time. I backed up the video, twice, uploaded it to the cloud, emailed it to myself. Then I shut the laptop. I heard soft steps down the hall. Elwood was still in the house. I met him in the kitchen, arms crossed, USB now in my pocket. You said you heard things, I said. Did you know about Lauren? He looked pained. Yes, but not everything. She's scared. They pressured her. I told her it was wrong, but... He trailed off. So you waited. Until now? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. He looked at me like a man who'd lived with guilt too long. I thought if I stayed out of it, it wouldn't get worse. But I saw the paperwork. I heard them say things. I had to tell you before they wipe you out completely. I nodded slowly. My voice came low and sure. Good, because I'll use this, but I won't be the villain in my own story. Not now. Not ever. Elwood left shortly after. I stood at the kitchen counter, hands still shaking. The early light filtered through the window, casting a soft gold across the floor. It should have felt peaceful. It didn't. I knew what I had to do. Tonight, I'd make the calls. To the lawyer, to the reporter. The video would be my opening line, but not yet. Timing mattered. Setting mattered. I needed them all in the room when it landed. I turned off the lights and went back to the hallway. That's when my phone buzzed. One new message. No name. Just, you shouldn't have trusted him. He's ready for you. My grip on the phone tightened. The morning crept in slow, like it didn't want to be here either. Coffee hissed in the pot, but even its smell couldn't cut through the staleness hanging over the house. I moved through the kitchen like a ghost, feeding the dog, drawing up the blinds, just motions. Inside, nothing but fog. My chest felt heavy, the kind of weight you carry when you've been erased piece by piece. I caught my reflection in the dark window. The same woman who once ran this home, now just a shape moving quietly. I whispered into the empty kitchen. I've lost the right to grieve. Saying it out loud made it sound even uglier. My mother used to say, sometimes the most dangerous cage is the one you decorate yourself. I stared at the little touches I'd put around the living room, photos, blankets, souvenirs. None of it mattered anymore. They'd already written me out. By the afternoon, the performance began. Silas slumped onto the porch swing, hand clutched to his chest, groaning low. Our daughter's voice cut through the quiet. Dad, "Dad, are you okay?" She ran to him, panicked. Neighbors came. Someone dialed 911. The sound of sirens drew eyes from across the street. Paramedics arrived, equipment snapping open, but the monitors read, "Inconclusive." Silas waved them off, saying it was just stress, all this family drama making him sick. He looked up at the crowd gathering and said, "I'm just trying to recover in peace." His words hung in the air like smoke. I stood behind the screen door, watching. He turned pain into a prop. The whispers started almost immediately. She pushed him too hard after cancer. He's been through so much. It spread like fire on dry grass, our community wrapping him in sympathy while they looked at me like a storm cloud. That evening, our daughter called for another talk. No warmth this time, just a dining table cleared bare, like an interrogation room. She sat straight-backed, eyes hard but trembling at the edges. "Mom," she began, "you've been emotionally abusive. You guilt trip. You need to control everything." Her words weren't hers. They were Silas's, spoken through a younger voice, each syllable a little knife. I stayed calm, my hands locked under the tablecloth where she couldn't see them tremble. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said evenly. "But you do." She flinched, but pressed on. "We're just trying to live without the drama." Even those I raised were now mirroring my enemy. For a flicker of a moment, I wanted to scream, to lay out the bank statements, the USB, the video, to tell her she was a pawn in her father's play. But something inside me shifted. They didn't want truth. They wanted a story to justify betrayal. I remembered Elwood's words. "Don't fight with fire. Let them burn alone." I pushed back my chair quietly. "Excuse me," I said, and walked out without slamming the door. Upstairs, I opened my closet. Not to run, but to remind myself I still could. I pulled out a small suitcase, unzipped it, and began to place a few essentials inside. A silent promise to myself. I whispered, "I am not trapped. I am not what they say." I sat on the edge of the bed, the house muffled below me. For the first time in weeks, I didn't cry. I felt the faint edge of clarity. I reached for my old journal, the one I hadn't opened in years. Its pages had soaked up every milestone, every secret. I flipped through until I landed on a page dated before his illness, a note Silas had written in my handwriting book. The words there made me sit straighter. Something I'd never seen before, something he hadn't meant for me to find. The sun was barely up when my phone lit up like a flare. Lines of text stacked one after another. "Insurance benefits revoked. Call administrator." I blinked at the screen, certain it had to be a mistake. My hands went cold before my feet even touched the floor. All those years of handling every pill, every hospital bill, every piece of paperwork. And now a text message was telling me I was nobody. I stared at the blinking notification. My mind raced through the last few years, every moment I'd clung to the idea of security, thinking at least the benefits were mine, at least the system would recognize me. What a joke. I swallowed hard, called the benefits number with a voice I barely recognized. On hold, tinny music playing, humiliation pressing down on me. When the operator confirmed it, her words were clinical, but the cut was deep. "Your caregiving role is no longer listed." I hung up and sat on the edge of the bed. It felt like I'd been stripped naked in public. This wasn't just about money. This was about erasing my life's work with the flick of a pen. I logged into our insurance portal with trembling fingers. Everything that had been ours was now theirs. My name gone, new beneficiaries listed, Silas and Lorelei, claims denied, unpaid bills now assigned to me. The betrayal was so thorough it almost felt like art. I took screenshots of every page, noting timestamps like a soldier documenting a battlefield. Each click steadied my hands. Inside my head, a voice whispered, "They're rewriting history, making you the villain in a story you never wrote." By mid-morning, I was at Dr. Greaves' clinic. I asked to review Silas's proxy paperwork, something I'd filed myself, something I'd held on to as proof I mattered. The nurse's polite confusion turned my stomach before she even spoke. "Mrs. Drexler, your name is no longer listed as his healthcare decision-maker." It was like a punch. The one domain I thought was mine, my voice over his care, gone. When I pressed, Dr. Grieve appeared in the hallway, apologetic but firm. It was a legal request from Mr. Drexler. That was all he would say. I walked out into the parking lot with my chest burning. Every angle planned. Emotional, legal, medical. My life dismantled like an old shed. For a moment, I thought about driving straight home and collapsing. Instead, I drove to my attorney's office. That afternoon, we sat across from the hospital administrator. I laid out my folder, original proxy documents, insurance records, legal files, spread them on the table like cards. The administrator wouldn't meet my eyes. "We only follow valid requests," she murmured. I leaned forward, my voice steady. I was the one standing by him when no one else would. Who else knows those documents better than me? The room went still. My heart pounded so loud it felt like a drumbeat under my skin. When it was over, I stepped outside into the crisp air, dialed Elwood, and told him to prep the video snippet. No public outburst, no crying, just a slow, methodical exposure. I whispered under my breath, "I will not beg for rights. I will reclaim them." Walking back to my car, my phone buzzed again. An anonymous email. "You missed one." Attached was a file labeled mornaflitchaccount.pdf. The name hit me like ice water down my back. I stood there, hand on the door handle, staring at the screen. The game wasn't over. It had just shifted again. Late afternoon brought a tremor in my phone. I opened my newsfeed and froze. The video Elwood gave me was trending. A local station had posted it. Headline: "Man thanks doctors and survivors. Omits caregiver." Comments poured in. Outrage, sympathy, accusations. My pulse raced. Had I exposed too much? I pulled my own copy, checked views, shares, tweets. Thousands, tens of thousands. It felt unreal. That evening, I stood behind the podium in a modest community room. The room smelled of paper and expectations. I cleared my throat. "I was there," I said, voice steady. "I did the unseen work." I pressed play. The video, my proof, filled the projector. Faces flickered, him at the mic, me beside him, but unseen. Some cameras had captured me reaching out, holding his hand while he pretended we weren't tethered. I laid out documents and photographs, my medical log, receipts, patient schedules. Reporters scribbled, some doubted. I kept pace. My anger was tempered, focused. I let truth land. At that moment, news broke outside. Silas's foundation held a gala in his honor. They handed me a $100 gift card. Symbolic thanks to caregivers. Applause. But the timing felt like salt in the wound. The media ran it side by side with my video. Editorial notes accused him of grandstanding, me of being ungrateful. That gift card became less a gesture and more a slap. Social media lit up. A caregiver, forgotten. She saved him. Old friends messaged, "I didn't know." Lauren's phone buzzed at the dinner table. She looked at me, voice trembling. "Mom, I didn't know. But I see you now." In that moment, I decided, this is bigger than vindication. This is rewriting our story. I opened my laptop, started emailing community leaders and reporters. I scheduled a forum where I would speak directly, bare everything. I told myself, this isn't revenge, it's justice. They will listen, not because I plead, but because I stand. The lights at the gala hall flickered. My name scrolled on the screen, next to speak. I hadn't accepted. The audience shifted toward the empty podium. The parking lot outside the community center was already full when I pulled in. Folks were parking on the grass, along curbs, double-stacked like Sunday service. I sat in the car for a second longer, watching the stream of people head in, carrying coffee cups, wearing windbreakers, some holding signs. I breathed once, twice, then grabbed the folder, the USB drive, and walked inside. The auditorium lights buzzed overhead. Folding chairs filled row after row. Someone handed me a mic. Elwood gave a subtle nod from the back. I stepped on stage, centered my stance. calm face, steel underneath. "I want to show you something," I said, clicking the projector remote. Side-by-side photos filled the screen. Family memories, familiar moments, birthdays, holidays, hospital rooms. On the left, the originals. My hand on Silas's shoulder, me holding his IV bag, laughing with the kids. On the right, versions posted online. My face gone. Cropped. Erased. Murmurs swept through the crowd. "This one was Larry's birthday," I said. "That was chemo day 3. This one, Christmas, after his second round of surgery. I baked 3 pies that year. My name wasn't on a single tag." I let silence take the air. Let them feel the quiet. "They didn't just erase me from the house," I said. "They tried to erase me from history." Gasps. Someone in the third row wiped their face. Phones were still up, capturing everything. Next, I played the viral clip. Silas on stage, thanking everyone, the doctors, his nurse, even his mail carrier. Skipped me, deliberately. Then I clicked to the next slide, his press quote, bold on the screen. "He lived, he needed change." The words hung like a fog. "Is that what we're calling it now?" I asked. "Betrayal, rebranded as growth?" Applause erupted. Not polite, not hesitant, real. Angry. Applause with grit. Reporters scribbled faster. People stood. Some shouted affirmations. For once, I didn't shrink under the noise. I caught sight of Morna in the back, Lorelei too. Their expressions cracked, confusion giving way to discomfort. Then I saw my daughter. Her mouth parted slightly, brows drawn in. She stepped forward. "Mom," she said, voice unsure. I didn't know. She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't clutch hers either. I just looked her in the eye. Steady. "You didn't have to know," I said. "But now you do." I turned back to the audience. You all heard him say it. He needed change, but change doesn't mean rewrite. It doesn't mean erase. It doesn't mean silence. Another wave of applause. Cameras flashed. Voices rose. The narrative had cracked open, and I had carved the fault line myself. When the forum wrapped, I didn't linger. I exited through the side hallway, camera flashes bouncing behind me. One mic caught me just before the doors. "Do you have a final comment, Mrs. Drexler?" I looked right into the lens. "I will rebuild, not for him, but for us." Then I turned. I didn't need to see their faces. I'd said what needed saying. Outside, the fall air felt sharper, clearer. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A new notification. Legal court filing. Summons. My name bold in the subject line. Deadline, 72 hours. The house was still, for once. Not silent in a lonely way, but quiet, like a room exhaling after being held too tight. Morning light was just beginning to push through the kitchen blinds. The coffee pot gurgled behind me as I stood at the sink, watching steam curl from the mug in my hand. I hadn't slept. Not really. But I wasn't tired either. After the forum, my inbox exploded. Hundreds of emails, messages, notifications. Strangers wrote me things like, "You spoke for people like me," and "You weren't invisible. We see you now." I sat for hours scrolling through them, alternating between smiling and crying, sometimes both at once. For the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. I jotted a list on a yellow legal pad. Contact new lawyer, move my savings, schedule therapy. It felt strange, almost luxurious, to plan from a place of power. My old friend Trish had called that night. We didn't talk long, but before hanging up she said, "Closure isn't something you're given, hun, it's something you build." A week passed. Suburban fall, Chicago just beginning to crisp at the edges. Leaves skittered across the driveway as I walked out to the mailbox. Mixed in with catalogs and political flyers was a thick legal envelope. My heart skipped. I braced myself. Lawsuit? Eviction? Back inside, I sat at the kitchen table and sliced it open. Slowly, not a lawsuit, a settlement, typed terms in legalese, cold, formal, sterile, financial compensation, division of property, A draft of a public apology from Silas's attorney, unsigned, of course. I read it again, then a third time. This wasn't justice. This was damage control. So he was scared. Good. But I didn't feel victorious. Just aware. My mind spun. Take the money and walk. Keep pushing for public clarity? What matters more now, truth or peace? I wasn't sure yet. That afternoon, my daughter showed up unannounced. She didn't knock, just opened the back door and stepped in with a cardboard box cradled in her arms. Inside, old photo albums, hand-labeled VHS tapes, postcards. I found these in storage, she said. Her voice shook. I believed what they showed me for so long. I didn't ask. I should have. She looked down. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't flinch. I didn't sigh. I just said, we were both lied to. We sat cross-legged on the carpet, flipping through pages. She laughed at one picture, me in curlers, icing a cake. I laughed too, though my eyes stung. Later that night, she posted a photo of us, one of the originals, not cropped. Her caption, "This is my mother. She was there, every step." The internet responded like wildfire, but this time, it wasn't noise. It was restoration. 2 days later, I met with my lawyer and Elwood. We sat at a diner over black coffee, settlement papers spread across the table. I don't want his money, I said. Then make it mean something, Elwood replied. Reclaim the terms. So we countered, with a condition, a public donation from his estate to a fund supporting cancer caregivers, with his name nowhere near it. That night, I whispered to myself, I'm not fighting for the house anymore. I'm fighting for a legacy. Americans like their sayings, and I'd lived long enough to know one that fit just right. Don't get mad, get even by doing better. A month later, I moved into a small apartment. Bright walls, warm light. I unpacked slow, hung photos on my own terms, planted tomatoes in pots on the balcony. I invited friends over for a quiet dinner. My daughter came early to help. She set the table while I finished cooking. Just before we sat down, she paused. Hey, she said, lifting the cloth napkin at her place. You folded it like you used to, just like Grandma did. I smiled. I never stopped. Even when no one noticed, she reached over and squeezed my hand. After we ate, we sat by the window, watching the first snow of the season begin. Flakes drifted softly across the glass. It was quiet again, but not hollow this time. I lost a marriage, I said quietly, but I found my voice. And just like that, I felt something loosen in my chest. My phone buzzed. A message. Your story's gone national. Are you ready for the next step? I looked out at the snow, smiled. They tried to erase me, I whispered, but I became indelible.